Now, as we all know, Qui Gon Jinn is one of the most wise Jedis to ever be in the Order. He was known for being kind of rebellious though in the way he handled missions and the way he handled the Force. Qui Gon Jinn only listened to the living Force and only abided by those rules that were given to him by the Force. He didn't actually listen to what the Jedi Council had to say about anything. He only let the Force guide him throughout his entire journey in a galaxy, which at times did get him in trouble with the Jedi Council, but throughout all that, the Jedi Council still wanted him. The Jedi Council knew that Qui Gon Jinn was more of a rebel and would not listen to them as much as somebody else if they had thrown onto the Jedi Order. But it was actually his refusal to bend to the rules that actually led to the Jedi Council saying that they needed him on the Council itself. The Jedi felt that, though, with his wisdom and the way he only trusted in the Force, that it could actually keep them grounded in reality and keep everybody on the Jedi Council in check. And contrary to popular belief, Qui-Gon actually thought about taking up this chance and actually joining the Jedi Council. He thought about it a lot. But ultimately, it came down to the pure fact that he felt as though the Jedi had completely lost their way. He felt as though they were no longer protectors of peace and they were actually just becoming politicians. He knew that they had strayed away from the Force and were no longer listening to it. He thought that they were listening to nothing but the politicians, which was mainly true. They had too many senators, had too many thoughts and feelings going into their head from other people outside of the Force and outside of the Jedi Council itself. And as many of us do know, this is actually one of the contributing factors into why the Jedi actually fell, and why the Jedi completely mistreated Anakin Skywalker in many different occasions and many different ways. Due to their lack of care of Anakin Skywalker, he ended up following Palpatine as a young boy and looking up to Palpatine as a father figure. This is why Anakin Skywalker eventually ended up changing and following Palpatine all the time. Also sticking by these rules and listening to politicians all the time is how Palpatine was able to sneak and live underneath the Jedi's noses the entire time on Coruscant as a senator. Qui-Gon also only following in the Force is the reason why he actually became the very first Force ghost. It wasn't about power, it was about trusting and having faith in the Force. If it was all about power, then Mace Windu and Yoda would have been easily able to become Force Ghosts, but actually Qui-Gon Jinn was the only one to become a Force Ghost first, and he actually taught Yoda how to do it later on. And he also passed that knowledge on to Obi-Wan, and Obi-Wan quickly passed that knowledge on to Anakin Skywalker before he passed. With all this in place, Qui-Gon knew that he would never actually be able to line up with the Jedi Council directly. Qui-Gon knew that he would never be able to line up and fall in line with what the Jedi Council wanted him to do. He was always free thinking. He only trusted in the Force and only the Force. And in many ways, the Jedi could have actually learned from him, just as Master Yoda had to learn from him later on in life to become a Force Ghost. And although he would actually be able to keep the Jedi Council more grounded within the Force, it ultimately would have just led to more arguments and constant bickering. So Qui-Gon ultimately chose the path of peace and only the Force. And although Qui-Gon's decision to not join always baffled Obi-Wan Kenobi and people on the Jedi Council or Jedi in the Jedi Council, Qui-Gon would ultimately stick to his guns. And he ultimately felt that the Jedi would just hold him back. Qui-Gon saw very early on that the Jedi were already losing their way, that they were no longer protectors of peace, and were more so becoming figures and puppets of the Republic. But anyway, that's all I got for this video. Let me know your guys' thoughts and opinions on Qui-Gon Jinn's decision in the comment section down below. Part of me wishes that he actually would have joined a Jedi Council because it would have changed Anakin Skywalker's life for the better going forward. But in the same breath, I completely understand why Qui-Gon Jinn would have actually never joined a Jedi Council, because it would have just been like talking to a wall the entire time, and that's no way to live. Especially with how brash and bullheaded the Jedi Council actually was, especially someone like Mace Windu. But anyway, may the Force be with you guys, and as always, have a great rest of your day.